everybody. Welcome to week 5 of your evidence-based practice course. We are halfway through and we will all make it, right? All right. So thank you for getting your section D papers in. I'm looking forward to reading your initial ideas about how you're really going to bring this EBP practice change to life. So I've really enjoyed this week speaking to some of you on the phone, emailing with you, and really trying to pin down what it is that you're trying to accomplish. I think that everybody is on the right track now and it has the evidence that they need. So I'm excited. All right, so let's look at this week's discussion questions. All right, number 1, ask us about the importance of using a model or theory to help guide the change process. Okay, have you ever seen like a new policy or procedure rolled out and it was really done poorly? Maybe it was done quickly without much notice. Maybe a reason for all this change wasn't given. Maybe the education wasn't well done. Maybe there wasn't any follow-through. So many of those problems can be prevented if a really good change model or theory is executed well, right? All right, number 2 is a follow-up question to last week. You'll need to look at one of the barriers that you identified in one of last week's discussion questions, and then you'll be telling us about 2 possible ways that that barrier can be addressed. Just pick one barrier. Some of you identified a whole bunch, so just pick one and then give us 2 possible ways that that could be dealt with. Okay, is it an education issue, a resource issue, a leadership issue? So I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts about that. Ooh, sorry for that. Okay, now on to the big stuff. There are 2 papers due this week, Section E and Section F. So let's start with Section E. All right, so Section E is about the change process. So in 500 to 750 words, you'll be telling me about a change theory or a change model that you would like to use with your EBP implementation plan, okay? There are so many to choose from. There's just a lot out there. So I need you to describe the theory or the model that you decided to choose and why. Provide a rationale. Why did you choose this particular one? Then you will identify the stages or steps found in the theory or the model. Stages, steps, parts of the process. So the way that the model or theory breaks down that change process, okay? So you're going to pull those out and identify them, and you're going to write what will take place generally during each one of those phases, steps, whatever it's called in your process. So some of this will come from what you present in your solution paper, okay, the different, how things flow, okay, but other areas you might need to brainstorm. Let's just take a real simple, Lewin's theory of change, unfreezing, implementing or changing, and refreezing. What are you going to do to unfreeze? Are you going to do education about the research, whatever? What are you going to do to make the change? Do you need to provide education? Do you need to get a new form on out? And then what happens during refreezing? Is there some follow-up data collection? This is general. What happens during each of the phases or steps? Okay. Usually, a final stage of each change model or theory has to do with evaluation. So please write some initial thoughts about this evaluation step. Then you'll be expanding on that further in Section G, which is all about outcomes and evaluation. Okay. Now, a part of this is also creating a conceptual model about your change that you'll turn in at the end with your proposal. And sometimes my students get stuff on this. So I wanted to show you some examples of conceptual models, okay? So here is a very simple one about change. Awareness, understanding, commitment, and action. It's a very simple model. Here is more of a flowchart model. I just want to show you where there's a change in consumer preferences, and it shows how the manufacturer and the processor change, come up with a new product to meet consumer preferences, but it's more of a flow chart. This one is looking at how attitudes change in an organization, and it just shows the different components needed to get there. Change content, change process, individual attributes, the things that need to change to get an attitude change within an organization. So those are three different examples of some of the different formats that you might want to use. And if you Google conceptual models for change and click images, you know, you can come up with some ideas, or maybe your theory or conceptual model has something that you can modify a little bit and make it your own. Okay? All right. Section F, the more in-depth one. So with section F, here you are writing again 500 to 750 words about the nitty-gritty of implementing your proposal. So let's just go right down those list of directions, and I can maybe just add a little bit. So number one is setting and subjects. Where will the intervention specifically be implemented now? A particular unit, a particular clinic, specific. And how will you obtain the participants from your population? Will these be existing patients? Will you need to recruit participants? Will people need to refer them to you? And if you need to gain any official like consent or approval within your organization to do this, you'll need to include like the form or the document that you would use asking for approval. The document will be in your final proposal. You'll discuss it in the paper. Okay. Timeline. So in this week's paper, you'll describe in writing the timeline. Okay, and then you'll actually plot out a timeline and include that with your final proposal. So the timeline should be general. So like month 1, month 2, month 3, and not include like specific dates, but just kind of general chunks of time. And then you'll include parts of the process like obtain approval, identify participants, provide education, implement the change. Those kind of things. So it's kind of a broad timeline with the big steps. Number 3 is resources. Things needed to make the practice change. Okay. So think about paying people, any equipment needed, software, supplies. Do any tools or processes need to change? For example, does a change need to be made to the electronic health record? Or maybe a change to the discharge planning process. So this assignment for this week will include writing about the resources that you need. In the final proposal, you will actually submit a written resource list as an appendix. All right, number 4. Number 4 deals mostly with documents. Is there a new flow sheet, screening form, lesson plan? Something like that. You'll write about it in your paper, and then you'll actually attach that thing as an appendix in your final proposal. If you need to obtain permission, like to use a new screening tool or to use somebody's form that's been copyrighted, write in there how you're going to do that. How will you obtain permission to use this thing? Number 5, delivering the intervention. How will you actually start the ball rolling? Do you need to educate staff? Do you need to educate other people? Do you need to have someone in the organization distribute the new policy or procedure and say it's starting? Do you need to set up the first session of something? What is it do you actually need to do to get the ball rolling? Number 6, data collection plan. In your PICO question, there is the O for outcome, right? How will data be collected to measure this outcome? Who will obtain the data? Will a tool be used? Do you need to run off some type of report? Who will be analyzing that data to determine if that EBP change was successful? And then, so you're going to write about it this week. For the final proposal, you're going to include that tool, form, whatever it is that you'll be collecting data on. Number 7, strategies to deal with barriers, facilitators, and challenges. So look at the likely barriers that you think you could expect to meet when you want to implement this practice change, and then just briefly describe a method to overcome those maybe 1 or 2 barriers. The barrier might be attitudes, knowledge, dollars, whatever, but briefly tell me how you would overcome the most likely barrier that you would expect for your project. Number 8, feasibility. We're really talking about finances here. Look at your resources list that you developed earlier in the paper. Provide a rationale for the different types of items, and include some general cost information in this assignment for this week. Now, in the final proposal, you will actually attach a physical budget as an appendix. Now, you can search the internet for prices. You can ask your purchasing department at your facility. You can talk to IT if your electronic health record needs to have a change made to it. So you're going to do your best to try to quantify that cost information. Number 9, finally, what will you do after the new practice is implemented and you have the data? What will be your process when you review this information to either keep it the way it is, tweak it, extend it to other areas of the facility, or shut it down? How will you approach making that decision and making those things happen? Whew. All right. This really needs to be a concise paper. On average, you only have about 80 words for each section. Just the facts, ma'am. Please look over the rubric. The rubric's just a little bit different than the rest of the rubrics earlier in this course. You still do not need to write an introduction and conclusion paragraph, but everything needs to flow together and seem like one cohesive process, not just disjointed pieces that don't come together as puzzle pieces. I know this has been a really challenging process for many of you. It's a lot of information to pull together. I hope my feedback is helpful in these videos and on your papers. You can do it. I'll see you in the main